Hi, this is Gretchen Pontius with Module 16. It is a case study from Missing Booster Club Funds from George Washington Middle School, and this is for my EDL 854 class. To start with a brief summary of what's happening in the scenario, George Washington Middle School has a declining enrollment. It has approximately 450 students. The SES status, the socioeconomic status, is decreasing. A lot of the community works in the local factory and mill. With that, a lot of the younger families are moving out to more prominent communities. Although it is a very hard-working community, there's still strong community involvement. Parents will come volunteer during school. They also volunteer after school, and they help out at the extracurricular activities that the school offers, which is basketball, volleyball, track, and within that they also have cheer to support the athletes. Mr. Stevens is the principal. He has been the principal for 4 years, or he was appointed 4 years ago. He is loved by his staff, the students, and the community. He does not have an assistant principal. He is the sole principal in the building, so he does rely heavily on the community involvement, the PTA, and other places like that, or other organizations like that, to help him during these extracurricular activities with concessions and gates. The 4 people are recommended to help, 2 for concessions and 2 for the gate, to help keep track of all that is happening. Which leads us then to the problem. What's happening is $50 is missing along with tickets 78 to 88. So 11 tickets and $50 are missing, possibly from the fund after a game. Which kind of leads me to category 1, the problem identification and analysis. What do I know? I know that Miss Bauman is a prominent community member who volunteers frequently. She's had 2 students already go through the school, and they're in the high school. She has 1 student remaining in the school, a 7th grade daughter named Lucy. With that, her daughter has made the all-state cheer team and is requesting funds to take her daughter to the all-state cheerleading parade in New York. She's requested PTA funds, and she's done her research and thinks she's going to need $798 in order to take her daughter on this trip. Mr. Stevens made an appointment with her on a Thursday. They went through. She told him what she would like and why. Mr. Stevens denied the request of the PTA funds, and he just reinforced that funds should benefit all students. He asked her how she would feel if all of this money went to one student, if it wasn't her daughter. Miss Bauman asked him to reconsider, and it was left at that he said it wasn't something that he was willing to do to spend that much money on one student. That then takes us to Monday night. So again, that happened on a Thursday. Then on the following Monday, there was the last home basketball game. It was at full capacity. It was busy. Mr. Stevens was going around monitoring, and he was just trusting the parent volunteers to have everything taken care of at the gate and the concessions. As he was monitoring during the game, Mr. Dumas, a patron, said that he had paid with a $50 bill. This was just kind of a passing conversation. So then when Mr. Stevens gets the bank bag from Miss Bauman, he and the security guard go to count the money. He always has someone present with him when he's counting the money and depositing. As he's counting, he noticed that there was not a $50 bill within the bank bag. And then also there was a written note from Mrs. Bauman that said that tickets 78 to 88 were torn, so they had to be thrown out. So that, in addition with the missing $50, which is the cost of $10, even though 11 tickets were missing, that seems a little off. All of this had happened, though. From here, I had some questions about what I needed to know, a little more information. So first of all, who handled the money and tickets at the game? Was Mrs. Bauman the only one in charge? Were there 2 volunteers that day? Did anyone else see the tickets that got torn? How did they get torn? I also would need to know what type of bills are there. Maybe the $50 bill was made to make change and someone else had paid with larger bills. So knowing the types of bills in there, and then also if everything added up besides the missing tickets. It said that, but it didn't really stay there, so I wanted to get a little more information on that. And then also, do tickets typically get torn and discarded? Is this common? That's something that I would assume if that happened, you would want to leave the tickets in the bag as evidence that these tickets were torn and they could later be discarded. But just to kind of cover all your bases there. And then also, is there security footage? The reading doesn't sound like there is, but possibly there is security footage that we could go back and check to see kind of what happened here, or if anything was out of the ordinary. So that takes me to what is the problem. The obvious problem, just reading this without thinking through it, is that $50 in tickets are missing. That's straightforward within the reading. But from there, there's a lot of other questions or problems that I see. First of all, Mr. Stevens has control over the PTA decision-making when it concerns the funds. Everything we've learned throughout this course have told us that principals should simply be advisors to PTA. They should not be the ones in control. They should not be in control of the money. It shouldn't be his decision if Lucy and Mrs. Bauman get that money. That should be a PTA decision, whether it be the president or there is a process that they have in place. Also, something else that I noticed as a problem is that Mrs. Bauman has a motive for wanting money. I'm not saying she would take the money, but she has a motive. So if she is the only one in charge of money at the game, if she had a motive, that's something that shouldn't be. There should always be two adults when handling money to ensure that money isn't taken, and then if mistakes are made, there's two people that can say it was an accident or what happened. From there, I saw some procedures that weren't in place that I would want in place. So first of all, I would want people to sign in. So who collected tickets, money, and worked concessions. This way, if anything happened, not missing money, just any issues at all, I could go back to these people and check on if they could help me clarify what happened, especially if it was a place that I couldn't be present at, such as during a basketball game. Also, I want to know from this specific game who collected money. Was it just Mrs. Bauman? Were there multiple people? And then how do they typically address issues like torn tickets? Do they throw them away? Do they document it? Do they just write a note like she had? I think that there should be a distinct procedure in place for when this happens, what to do and who to contact. So then going back, like when you're counting money, you're not running across this problem late after a game. Next then would be category 2, my proposed plan of action. The first thing I would say, written signed statements from Mr. Stevens and the security guard just saying we counted money, this is how much was there. From there, if the security guard didn't have any idea what he was talking about with missing $50, Mr. Stevens should also document that in front of the security guard. The next thing right away would be to contact the business office and check the district policies. This might be something completely out of his control. They might have policies and procedures in place already. You would want to check that before you go any further to make sure you're following the correct procedures. You don't want to be trying to help when in all actuality you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. If possible, you would want to obtain security footage. Again, this might not be possible. There might not be security cameras within the building, but if so, you would want to do that. The next thing, I would want to speak with the parent volunteers from Monday night and obtain written statements. Whether it just be asking about the tickets, we could ask Mr. Domas to document that he paid with a $50 bill. And also, I would want to talk to Mrs. Bauman, not accuse her, but just ask about the tickets, what happened. As I went through and talked to all these people and got their statements, I would want another adult present with me just to make sure that they understand I'm not out there, I'm not on a hunt to find anyone or find anything wrong. I just need to hear what happened, especially if the torn tickets is something that's not typical. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary to ask for this. I would want to check for any inconsistencies in the stories, just to see if something had happened. From there, I would want to formulate formal procedures for ticket taking and concession stand and then train workers so that if something were to happen again in the future, we would be able to say this is a procedure that I would follow if something happened. With that, I would also want to make sure there were always 2 people at each station just for security and safeguard. Also, I would want to appoint an event coordinator and maybe train a couple people in this so that they could help me out throughout the process. This is not a witch hunt. I wouldn't want to accuse Mrs. Bowman, especially without rock solid evidence. I'm just trying to get all of the story and then move forward to make sure something doesn't happen again. So to resolve the issue, I wouldn't, again, accuse anyone. Unless I had all the evidence pointing in one direction. That's a bridge that I would not want to burn. And I need to remember what's best for students. Is me burning a bridge with a parent who I don't really know if they did anything wrong going to benefit students? That wouldn't. So that's not something I would want to do. I want to maintain positive relationships and prevent humiliation. And moving forward, I want to be proactive versus reactive. So I want to find all of these steps to get in place so moving forward, I wouldn't have issues or we would know what to do. All of that proactive part would be train parent volunteers so that these issues don't occur. Also, I would like the PTA to share how money is being spent on students, and I would also want them to be in control of their own funds. That's not something Mr. Stevens or myself as a principal should be in control of. My next category, debrief through reflection. As I'm going through this, I'm thinking, well, where is the money? I am a math-minded person and I want to know what happened. But I also am thinking, is there enough evidence for me to accuse someone? Based on what I know, I don't think there is. And then how can I fix this for the future? Again, I want to be proactive. I want to make this not happen again. I'm feeling that Mr. Stevens shouldn't control the PTA money. That is not something that he should have control of. That should be the PTA. I'm also thinking, how can the school/PTA help Mrs. Bauman? If that's something that they can't afford, could we help them set up their own fundraiser? Could we give them a little bit of money? Is there something that we could do to help them? I don't want to burn any bridges. I want to build trust here. Even though I might have the unresolved issue with the money, and upon further investigation, something didn't help there, I still want to help my students. That's my end game here. And then also I'm feeling, could I get my staff involved somehow during home events? I know a lot of times teachers are overworked, but is there some of them that would be interested in helping go through this, or at least being the event coordinator? Although all of this is in my brain and I'm feeling this, I really do value the parent and community involvement. That's not something you'll find everywhere you go. So I really value that. I also value the power of procedures. I like things to have a place and a way to go, and all of this is showing me that we do need to have procedures in place, and also that every dollar counts, that if I lose a little here and I lose a little there, that's going to be an issue. So I value that the $50 is a concern. Next, Standard 8, an educational leader promotes the academic success and personal well-being of every student by ensuring effective and efficient management of the school or district to promote student, social, and academic learning. That leads me then into 3 categories. First of all, efficient and effective management. First thing that Mr. Stevens does correct is he attends everything regularly. He checks on the workers and the money. He uses volunteers, but more training as an event coordinator is something that I would take into consideration there to make things be more efficient and effective. And then also there's a lot of procedures in place. I would just add on them with ways to safeguard the money, to have procedures and protocol moving forward. Component 2, promote social learning. Supporting extracurricular activities is something that Mr. Stevens is doing. He's supporting the PTA in its endeavors. He's building relationships with all stakeholders. And again, I would continue doing all of this. Social learning is taking place through the sports and activities, so it's important to be present and encourage the kiddos that way. Component 3 would be promoting academic learning. So collaborative relationships with parents, showing them that I care inside the school day and outside helps. Raising funds is something else that Mr. Stevens is helping do through these extracurricular activities. We want to benefit all of our students with these funds, not just a few students. And then solid internal controls is something that Mr. Stevens has, but it could be solidified a little more in this process. I referenced my textbook throughout to remind me of key features and key pieces throughout this. Thanks for listening.